over here, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42,
We'll be right back
43,
after this break.
44.
Welcome to Coffee and Geography, where my guests and I geek out about the world and everything on it, discovering that we are all geographers in some way, shape or form. I am your host, Kit, and my pronouns are they, them or she, her. So settle down with a brew, hit that subscribe or follow button, and enjoy the listen. Hello, welcome to Coffee and Geography. Now, am I clutching at straws this week? Because my guest has no apparent affiliation with geography, so perhaps it's a challenge for me to prove that he is some kind of geographer. Or maybe he's here just because he's a thoroughly nice guy. But I'll take a bit from column A and a bit from column B. Andy Poulastides, thanks for coming to my neck of the woods for a change.
Thank you for having me, Kit. And to answer your first question about am I connected to geography in any way, I would refer to the great philosopher Peter Quill from Guardians of the Galaxies. I'm one of the idiots that live here. So, just by the nature of that alone, I think we're all connected by geography, aren't we?
And that's it, everybody. Thanks for listening. And yeah.
Good night, everybody.
So there we go. No, and that's the argument I always give. At the end of the day, we live on this rock, don't we? We're all geographers in one way, shape, or form. But you also describe yourself as 6 foot, 175 pounds, dark brown hair, beard, usually seen in jeans and quirky sci-fi t-shirts. And like to paraphrase Star Wars, because you live on this rock, because I live here. But you're also fascinated how geography and history intertwine. So, yeah, and also, and I made that quip about like, thanks for coming and visit my neck of the woods for a change, because I have been a guest on one of your podcasts. Was it 3 times now? I think.
Is it 3? We did the geography teachers strike back.
Thunderbirds.
We did Thunderbirds, and then we did the climate change one. So yes, we have done 3. Only 3, though. I need to get you back for more. We must do more.
I know. I was going to say, I'm becoming quite part of the furniture at the Great Derelict. I don't know. What would that be? What would be part of the furniture of a wreck in space?
Part of a bulkhead, perhaps. Actually, that can actually happen. It's not a pleasant thing to happen, so you don't want that.
I'm becoming an old self-stealing stem bolt or something.
Yes,
like that. I don't know.
one of those. Yes, mint in the box, never opened.
Right. So, coffee and geography, and you're sipping away at your brew. What have you brought to the table to our chat, Andy?
I've brought a White Russian, my beverage of choice.
It
has coffee in it, so I thought, it's coffee liqueur. That counts.
Oh, I mean, it certainly does. Yeah. Let's see. Now we've been shouting out to brands just because we want to like investigate whether they're being sustainable and being nice to the planet or not. So should we get you to what's your vodka then? I mean, I think I can. Is that it there? Can I see it on the side of the screen?
This is a bottle of Smirnoff, and I don't know. Where's this made these days?
No idea if it. Yeah. Its credentials.
Well, it is produced in the UK, so I couldn't tell you about sustainability.
Of course it would be, yeah.
But it doesn't come all the way from Russia. And then obviously we have Kahlua.
The Kahlua.
A product of Mexico, but I do believe... No, this is imported, so this actually does come from Mexico. So it's probably not scoring
some
points
carbon
there.
miles there, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't drink coffee, and this was the closest I had, so...
Fair dues.
I had to make do with what we had.
Similar taste, spicy in the taste. Very nice. Yes.
And it's the drink of the dude, a man with whom I think has a very good philosophy to get through life.
I like it. Yeah,
yes.
Well, you bring in the class, Andy. You're absolutely bringing the class. I mean, we are recording this late at night. The kids gone to bed. I could have, I'm a bit of a whiskey drinker myself. I like a bit of a wee dram, and that's thanks to one of my best friends, Clive, who's a Scottish bloke from the borders, from Dumfries, who I used to lodge with when I was a young teacher. And he never used to let me go to bed without a wee dram first. So now I got bottles of the stuff. Thanks, Clive. Scots.
To be fair, there were far worse things to be becoming addicted to when a young teacher. So.
Very, very true. And on that note, let us move on.
I was going to say gin, but yeah.
Oh, well, you've got lots and lots of teachers listen to this. They're probably all going, oh, no, okay, you're getting a bit too close to the bone now. Let's move on. Okay. So you are on. Okay, right. This is so hilarious. What links, we're going to talk about just roughly where you live now and kind of like what that means to you, right?
Okay.
But what links your neighbourhood of London, which we'll reveal in a second, with the following, right? Morden, Tooting Bec, Clapham North, and Camden Town.
Well, what connects them all is the Northern Line, but I do feel like we need to now fall into a game of Mornington Crescent, since you've listed a couple of tube stations in such a manner, as is reference to the Tooting Bypass Pact of 1962.
Oh, that's not one I know about. I'm going to have to look that one up.
That's the game of Mornington Crescent.
So, but no, actually, you were right. It's all about the Northern Line, because I don't know how this happened. And it happened completely accidentally and coincidentally, I promise everybody. But last season, I had no less than 4 guests who live along the Northern Line. So my first ever guest for Coffee and Geography was the wonderful Glynis Morgan, great friend of mine and geography teacher who lives in Morden. Then we had Katie Water in Tooting Bec. Who else? We had Akira Williams from Clapham North, or the Clapham area, and Lucy Eckersley, the punk biologist from Camden Town. So we just by coincidence, you're the 5th guest I had along the
furthest
Northern Line.
North on the Northern Line.
The furthest north so far.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
So, everybody, I just want to say, if you live along the Northern Line, then Coffee and Geography clearly is the place for you. Please get in touch.
I was going to say, you're probably done with people on the Northern Line at this point, aren't you? It's like, you know what?
Oh, no.
District Line, maybe, if you want to come along, Piccadilly.
But I tell you what, Andy, because all fascinating, wonderful guests. So you're just anybody who comes on now who's on the Northern Line has just got a very high barrier, high bar to clear.
I will try and drag that bar down with me, Tony.
I know you will. You won't disappoint anybody. Right. So Colindale is where you are in London. So tell us a little bit about Colindale, and actually, Andy, are you a Colindale person through and through, or have you moved there at some part of your life? But how does it form some kind of part of your identity then?
It's where I grew up, and then I left, and then I came back after a while. So it has been a large part of my life for a long time. I've been living here long enough now that although it's always been part of London, it's changed now, where London is continuing to eat it all up, and it is becoming more and more ensconced within the high rises, because we're part of Barnet, the London Borough, and Barnet has committed to, I think, 10,000 new homes was what the commitment was. And it does seem like they're putting all 10,000 of those homes in Colindale, like nowhere else in Barnet.
Where's the room?
Well, there used to be the police college here, Hendon Police College, which, if you have ever watched Avengers Age of Ultron, you will have seen the police college, because it was featured quite heavily, doubling as Sokovia. But after the Avengers were finished with it, there wasn't much left. So they flattened all that. And they just built flats and more flats and lots of flats and all of the flats and nothing but flats. So we've had a huge influx of people here. But as is often the case, when you put in lots of flats buildings, they haven't done much else in terms of infrastructure or anything like that. So we still have the same teeny tiny tube station and the same bus routes, and there's no more parking anywhere. So it has become a little crowded.
Yeah, that is a very, very common story when it comes to urban sprawl and conurbations linking together, and yeah, I mean, I could definitely go all geography teacher on you now, because one of the modules I used to teach to year 9, so that's the 14-year-olds, is of course about London and urban sprawl. So I come from Harlow in Essex originally, so. London's
we won't hold it against you.
No, well, I hold it against myself. So London's not quite, it's probably really realistically not going to go out that far. But my mum is from Epping, which is just outside of the M25, and that is, you can actually walk from Epping all the way into central London, with very, very little transition back into a kind of a rural area. So you would walk, basically it's the central line. You would walk from Epping through Thayden Boys, Loughton, Buckhurst, Hill, Woodford, all that kind of way. and it just London, it just keeps growing, and it's a fantastic urban transect. It really is. If you really want to see how, you just got this giant old settlement, how it just. But yeah, and I can imagine that where you are in Colindale. I'm just looking at the map here, and you've got the Royal Air Force Museum right nearby.
Oh yes, that's not far away at all, and many a happier day in my youth was spent over there because it's free as well, which is fantastic. So it's a
Ooh.
great little museum to go and have a look at. Um, there used to be the British Newspaper Library was here as well, but that's moved on since.
Ah.
Um, we do have a rather large uh, public health research facility, one of the few facilities allowed to deal with level 5 infectious substances. So they do have samples of smallpox there. That's just around the corner. So, that's fun.
Wow, I did not know that.
You're welcome.
Well, you're well, if you come down here with something really, really deadly serious, we know where it's come from then, won't we?
Well, it's definitely one of those things it doesn't bear to dwell upon too much. You go, ooh, let's just pretend that isn't there and we'll be quite happy. It's just kind of hidden away behind the KFC and no one needs to worry about it.
So you said that you grew up there and then you went away and came back. So was there ever a case then when you came back to Colindale, there's like you definitely noticed the difference from, or was you away long enough for it to change quite substantially when you went back?
While I was, I was away from 2002 until about 2008, 2009. And in that period, there wasn't a huge amount of change, really. What really changed was in the last decade, and that was when the police college was sold and redone, and a lot of the surrounding area. There used to be a very large shopping centre called Oriental City, which was featured in the film Dread. There's a little tidbit for you. But that was knocked down as well, and that's been turned into flats and the Morrisons. Effectively, any bit of land that is left vacant for more than 30 seconds is knocked down and turned into flats around here. Because Barnet has a reputation of being a very leafy suburb with lots of lovely things. And that's still very much the case over in Barnet side of things. But to meet these quotas, there's a few places. There's parts of West Hendon where they just cram it all into the one place. So the borough as a whole is seen to be, expanding and putting in more houses. But really, it's all just in the one spot.
It seems quite paradoxical to me because you've got the London, you supposedly got the green belt around London to stop it growing outwards even more an urban sprawl, but that doesn't seem to be very strictly abided to in recent decades. But there's still so maybe the infilling of London is the way to go, and that's how Harlow has developed actually quite a bit because it was so spread out as an old London new town. That was started up in the 1950s, but they just infilling it now, and that's just the way that it's been going. So, but which is it's really interesting to see how this works out, and I can just imagine, I don't know, trying to think of how many sci-fi movies don't have towering sky rises into the clouds.
The best comparison I can think of at the minute is Judge Dredd and the megacities, because what used to be the police college, and the police college, it was, police land, it was all fenced off, but it was big, it was open, there was green fields, you could see, there was like 3 very distinct accommodation blocks. But now all you see are these, those kind of Lego brick flats that are all just kind of put together. Very cheap to build, very expensive to buy. It's a 1-bedroom flat there to buy costs something like £125,000. And it's like there's not £125,000 of value in this property, but they're cheap to build, and they're just throwing them up left and right. But as I said earlier, there's no accounting for any. There's no new schools being built. There's no new transport hubs. None more of those links. It's just put the houses in place. And while yes, there needs to be more housing, more affordable housing, more than anything. There needs to be the other stuff too.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems to be an issue no matter where the development's taking place. My old high school, the high school I used to teach up just outside of Norwich, they effectively doubled the size of the settlement that it had about 800 dwellings, and they built over the space of just a decade another 800 dwellings. So that is a huge increase, but the infrastructure has not kept up. Let's put it that way.
No.
They've still got only one main road that goes into Norwich, and it was bad before those houses even went up.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is really interesting. So sticking with like your sense of identity though, so Poulastides, your last name then, that's Greek Cypriot.
It is indeed.
So how did that come about then? So if you're a lad born and bred in Colindale, where's the surname come from?
Well, the surname, it comes from my grandfather, who was born in Cyprus around the latter half of the 19th century, I believe, and who there was a little bit of empire building, if we're honest. Britain turned up and said, "Nice island, we'll take it. We have a flag," and put their flag in it, and then all of a sudden Cyprus became part of the British Empire. But
yes,
at that point, he was given a British passport because that's what they did, and so he moved to the UK. And he came to the UK. He got a job. He served in the Royal Artillery, I think, during the war. He got married. Served as the head waiter at the Ritz, and made a life for himself here. And honestly, the name Poulastides, it was something I endured more than anything else. I went to a secondary school where obviously, a name like that's just chum in the water as far as kids are concerned. So,
right.
What I would have given to be a Smith or a Jones back then, but no, I had to be Poulastides. But happened to come in quite useful recently because a little thing might have happened. You might have noticed little bit of screwing us over with Brexit and all that jazz. But it turned out we had my grandfather's old passport and his certificate of citizenship when he became a British citizen when they did the Empire thing. And when Cyprus gained its independence from the UK in, I think, 1967, part of their constitution was anyone who has a descendant along the male line of Cypriot descent was eligible for nationality. And so I was able to get my Cypriot citizenship. So I got myself a little ticket onto the lifeboat off the Titanic.
Wow. Yeah. And I have to say, I'm quite envious because I most certainly continue to identify as a European citizen. And, I do try keep obviously politics out of the podcast. But what I will say without any shame at all, is I am European, and I feel that my citizenship was taken away without my consent. So
absolutely,
and my children's European citizenship and everything, we had, but that's a debate we will leave in other spheres because.
But my point with that is though is as a result of that and a result of losing it through the British side, I've come to embrace my Cypriot heritage a lot more than I ever had done previously, and I'm glad I didn't change my name at some earlier point to something simple. I'm proud, like Smith. I'm proud I have it. I'm very glad I now have an EU passport once again, and I'm glad that I have those rights which were unjustly stripped. Frankly, we won't get into it, but I have many thoughts on that.
Yes,
I'm very grateful I was able to do it, and it has led me to reevaluate my origins and embrace it. So I'm very happy to once again have it.
And I certainly do see you in that respect. I kind of have feel it's been a privilege check for me and for a lot of us as well. You know what they say. Sometimes you don't know what you had until you lose it. So and things can be as fickle as that in the world of politics.
Yes.
So, but we're gonna move on a little bit now because we're going to spill the beans, Andy.
Okay.
And I'm just going to quote you on this because you're going to tell us what you actually mean by this because it's just so hilarious. Okay. You said in your form, that scene in the Lego movie where Benny is getting really excited about spaceships.
Yes.
I feel seen in that moment. So spill. I mean, okay. First of all, before you go and spill the beans, exactly what you mean by that, I just want to tell everybody that on the camera I can see a beautiful model of the Rocinante from The Expanse. It is gorgeous. So that's one thing about your love of spaceships. So yeah,
Well,
tell
you
us
can't
more.
see you can't see them from where the camera is currently placed, but from where I'm sitting on the shelf over here, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41,
We'll be
42,
right back
43,
after this break.
44, 45 spaceships on the shelf there.
Whereas I have some Thunderbirds, Thunderbird 2 here. The only one spaceship I really have is, of course, the Enterprise D. And Annie's going to get me. There we are. Is that the exact same one? Is it the one with the button? Oh no, it's different.
No, this is the Aerosmith one from Japan, which does the saucer separation thing. And yes.
Yeah, mine doesn't. So only that. No, this is. I reckon that this is the model from.
That's the Playmates one, yeah.
Yeah, it is. This is the
I
one
had that as
from Cause and Effect. You know why I think it's from Cause and Effect? Because the nacelles
come off. Yeah.
For anyone who doesn't know anything about Star Trek, like what the hell are they talking about? If you're going to watch an episode of Star Trek to try and get into it, maybe Cause and Effect is not a bad episode of Star Trek Next Generation to start with. To be honest,
it's not a bad one. Yesterday's Enterprise is another solid episode. Yeah.
Remember Me. That's a good one.
Remember Me.
Yeah.
I mean, once again, that's an entire podcast on its own. I mean, my favorite episode of The Next Generation is one that people don't tend to pick, but I love Sarek.
Yes, actually, that was mentioned very, very recently. Actually, about how big shout out to the people at Trek Culture. That's right, because I think it was Sean Ferrick who went down the list of I think it was something like 10 episodes that had a deeper meaning than you realize, or something like that. And the episode Sarek was a reflection on the fact that Gene Roddenberry was very, very ill, and was suffering from degenerative diseases and stuff like that. And it's just, it's such a powerful, powerful episode. So, yeah.
I think that's Patrick Stewart's best performance as Jean-Luc Picard is in Sarek. And Mark Leonard's best performance as Sarek. It's such a powerhouse of an episode. And because it doesn't have big spaceship moments, and it's ironic coming from me, but it's because it has these fantastic performances and it has that deeper meaning. I love that. And the music, I'm a sucker for a good score. And the music, and I know he's not actually playing Mozart like he claims, he's playing Brahms, but it's just such a beautiful scene when Sarek, get little tear shedding during the recital. I love it.
Yeah, and this is one of the things. This is how we connected, wasn't it? On Twitter initially, and how I ended up on your podcast was our deep love of sci-fi and Star Trek, but sci-fi in general as well, which is one of the reasons why you absolutely love spaceships. And I think the other thing that we've had so really good discussions about, as you already alluded to, because I do want to talk about like your podcast and your podcasting and what does that mean to you and things like that, because we've had such deep discussions about basically the deeper meaning of what sci-fi and science fiction and what it actually means for life. So as you mentioned earlier, we talked about the geography behind a lot of things, which is when myself and Alistair Hamill came on your
colonialization within
we talked about colonialization, and we talked about Thunderbirds. And we had such a deep discussion actually with regards to the whole backstory. I mean, I've forgotten my fellow guest's name now.
Lee Stringer.
We had Lee Stringer on, who had worked with Jerry Anderson and talked about, and there were so many things that I didn't even realize. And then, of course, when we talked about climate change, well, we could have just gone and then on and on and on. And I've written a blog actually post based on our discussion, and it's actually been one of the most popular blog posts I've written to date. So it's and that episode Sarek is a prime example of why I feel quite self-secure and satisfied about my geekiness of sci-fi, because it isn't just about Benny in the Lego movie, spaceships, which is what probably people see us, that meme, like what people think I am, what people, that one. It's not just about that's what people see us. It really is a lot of more nuance, a lot more depth to it. And Sarek is an episode which talks about that, because you say there's no space battles, there's no flying around the ship, there's hardly any techno babble in it whatsoever. No. It is just purely about this deep connection between someone who is suffering, the mental faculties breaking down, their relationship within other members of their family, and
his very identity of Sarek, who has always been this strong, stoic individual with a huge sense of duty, and he's there trying to do this one last thing, this one last task, and his barriers are slipping and they're falling down, and it's tragic. And I mean, when someone is suffering from that sort of an illness, and if you're watching someone suffer from it, they're losing their sense of self and who they are. Personally speaking, I can't think of anything more terrifying than losing your sense of identity. And the way it's portrayed in that episode is with such humanity and with such grace, and it's so powerful, and it just connects in such a way. And that is for me what science fiction does so well. It allows you to explore aspects of the human condition and of the world around us. And we are, as a species, very bad at self-reflection. We are terrible at it. But if you put a sci-fi lens on it, if you give them pointy ears or paint them blue and say, no, they're not humans, we're talking about this other species, then people tend to be a lot more receptive to self-identifying, say, oh, it was absolutely wrong. They discriminated against that person. Wait.
Hi folks, a chance for you to recharge your brew, but also a polite prod to remind you that it's so easy to support this podcast. Simply liking, sharing, rating and reviewing means that it will get on more people's radar. Also, there are a few links down in the description which may be of mutual benefit. Please do check them out. It's with so for those people who don't know about Star Trek, there's this race of people called the Trill, and the Trill, basically they have symbiotes that live inside of them who are their own conscious, their own being, but they can join with a humanoid body, and then they become one person with the shared memory, and then the symbiote can move on when that person has died. The symbiote can be moved on to somebody else, then moved on to someone else. So the symbiote can live for thousands of years, even though the person they join with may only be 70, 80, 100 years, whatever it is. And they are such an allegory for trans people. Mm-hmm. So people like myself who are trans, we identify quite strongly with Trill because the symbiote might be joined with a male host, and then the next host may be female. So
there's a fantastic scene in Deep Space Nine when 3 Klingon warriors show up, and they knew Dax's previous host, Curzon Dax. And Kor runs up and he embraces Jadzia and goes, "Curzon, my old dear friend." And Jadzia just simply says, "I'm Jadzia now." And without missing a beat, without any questions, without any judgment, Kor just says, "Jadzia, my old friend," and continues the embrace. And it's absolutely, it's not difficult, people.
And it's just like, if a Klingon can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So exactly. So and that is exactly an example from my personal identity, how they are not being explicit at all. In fact, it wasn't written to be a trans allegory at the time, but a lot of trans people identified with it.
But it's fantastic now that with Discovery, though, the writers are embracing that aspect of it. And what we're seeing with Adira and with Gray, they are both experiencing, being connected to the Dax story and going through effectively a trans metaphor in different ways. And what I also enjoy as well is what we're seeing, what's going on with Zora as well, and that dynamic there. I have issues with some of this writing on Discovery. I think it's generally quite uneven, but I adore the cast and I adore what they are trying to do with that show. And they're doing great work. If they could just a bit more consistency on the writing level, it would be the best Star Trek by a country mile.
Yeah, and none of them are going to ever listen to this podcast, but I do want to, in the absolute infinitesimal chance that any of them are, I've told them via social media and everything like that they are. I have connected with them so much, and thank you for everything that you've done. Everybody, I have managed to speak, as you know, on the podcast to Adil Hussein, who made a cameo to Star Trek Discovery, and I've relayed through him how I felt. But they do so much for fandom as well. They take the time to speak to fans. Wilson Cruz actually for the fleet that I'm a member of on Star Trek Online that I play occasionally. We lost a member, a long-standing member. Well, actually, one of the founding members of our fleet. Unfortunately, lost her at a very young age, and Wilson Cruz, got wind of this through our fleet admiral and sent us a message of condolences, and it was just, it's just beautiful. These people are beautiful people, human beings. It's just lovely that they can offer that to the fans.
It's great how invested the cast are, and they understand how important they are in what they're doing. This isn't William Shatner, get a life, people. These people understand what they represent and how important it is that we see them and that they are seen, and they embrace it, and they seem to love it as well, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
So it is fantastic that there is that kind of back and forth, because when Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager were on, we didn't have Twitter or that level of access to the cast at the time. So it's been quite fascinating seeing this new Star Trek. And it's not just Discovery as well. I mean, I adore Lower Decks and seeing what they've been doing there. And it's not even just Star Trek. The Expanse, what we were speaking about earlier, I think has had some of the best diverse casting and writing and just everything. And the depiction of character, the depiction of Drummer's polyamorous Belter family in season 5 was one of the best depictions of a family, and it's this idea, we have such a what's the word I'm looking for, we have such a narrow view of what family is, and it just kind of showed it is so much bigger than just a mummy and a daddy and a kid's there. No, family is such a ubiquitous term, and the fact in the world of The Expanse it encompasses your crew as much as there, and it's expanded upon in the books, and I will always harp on that the books are well worth checking out. But seeing how well it was depicted, and Cara G and everyone within that family, it was just amazing to see. I loved it.
And you mentioned Drummer, which of course is played by Cara G, and I'll have no qualms or any shame of saying I think she's damn hot. I am so gay for Cara G.
Oh, she's the queen of a belt,
and she's Chippewa, so she's of indigenous descent as well, which is great. And I didn't actually know that until I looked up and stuff like that. So, and then I realised that actually, wow, that really is such a diverse cast. And
when you see Cara G separate from Kamina Drummer, like you see her without the makeup and just how she is normally. There's such a. This is the thing with acting Oscars and everything like that, and awards. I often think you kind of need to show what is the actor like on their baseline compared to the characters, because some people they just play themselves. I mean, I love Gene Hackman, but Gene Hackman plays Gene Hackman. Okay, it's just what he does. But you look at Cara G and then you look at Kamina Drummer, and it's like that's night and day. That is talent, because I would walk by Cara G and I wouldn't spot her or pin her for Kamina Drummer in an instant. Even if she spoke to me, I wouldn't connect it.
Oh, okay. I mean, we need to stop now. Move on. Honestly,
okay.
I'm starting to red. Right. So before we move on to the next bit, then Andy.
Okay.
This is going to be such a tough question for you, being such a the breadth and depth of your knowledge of sci-fi and stuff like this. But for you personally, if there was one sci-fi, or maybe an element of a sci-fi that really does speak deep to your soul, that you have a really deep connection with, what do you think that might be and why? I know it's maybe a toughie, but
it's probably not as tough as you think, because I'll just fall back on it. My favorite science fiction film of all time is Blade Runner. I love Blade Runner, and I love Blade Runner because it's a beautiful looking movie. It is fantastic, but I love it because at its core it asks the question, what is it to be human? And you have this wonderful moment at the end of Blade Runner, and a spoiler for a 40-year-old film if people haven't seen it, but at the end of Blade Runner, Deckard is being chased by this replicant, Roy Batty, and Batty has seen his brothers, his sisters, his lovers killed, gunned down by people like Deckard. Deckard, who is a Blade Runner, a police officer who is given free rein to kill them because it's not murder, it's retirement. And he holds Deckard in his hands like he could kill him. He has that power to do it. And he says, it's quite a thing to live in fear. That's what it is to be a slave. And then he pulls him up off the edge. And then he falls into this soliloquy and he tells Deckard, he goes, I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. And he goes on to talk about these things he's seen, he's experienced these moments. And then he says, all these moments will be lost like tears in rain. Because he knows he is unique. His experiences are valid. His life is valid. He was real. He may not have been born human, but he is human. I think, therefore I am. And then he dies. And he dies there. And it's a very sad moment. And in that moment, Deckard realizes, I like to believe, that he has been murdering these people. He has been, this job, which was deemed to be the right thing to do, to go out and do all this. No, it's not been retiring faulty machines. It's been murdering individuals. And he comes to understand that moment. And it's just such a beautiful moment. And it's something that's always resonated with me, is this question of what is it to be human? It's such a hard thing to quantify. I recently recorded an episode of my podcast, The Great Derelict, and we talked about, what is it to be human, where you have this intersection between technology and with humanity. It's very hard to say a human is this. It's very hard to identify what are those core traits. And I love science fiction, which forces you to explore that. And what's even better then is you have the sequels film 2049. And I thought for the longest time it was impossible to do a sequel to Blade Runner. I didn't want it. I thought it was just going to be cheap and chitsy and terrible. But Denis Villeneuve gave us such a good sequel. And he basically, for a lot of times, a big question within Blade Runner community was, is Deckard a replicant? Was he a replicant? Was he a replicant? Denis Villeneuve came up and said, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he was a replicant. He knows what's real. And I love science fiction like that. So that's a long way of saying that film, that aspect. That's what I like. But also the spaceships.
Spaceships. What a great answer. Yeah, and if anyone's got any love for sci-fi, do check out Andy's podcast, The Great Derelict. And it's brilliant. It's brilliant. It's
especially if one's kits on.
Yeah, subscribe to both of our podcasts, please.
Yeah.
Right. We got one feature to do before we do our last little bit, Andy. Is that you're going to be the first guest of season 2 to do Jog On. Which is where we give 5 random topics, completely random. One we may actually automatically pass on because I feel we've actually covered it quite a lot of depth already.
Okay.
But the rule is, everybody, if you've not heard this before, is that Andy can choose to say jog on, which is GEOG, by the way. Yes, there's the pun, which means that Andy would love to talk about it, and off he goes for a little bit. Or he could say take a hike, which means skip that. But the little caveat is, because so he doesn't just skip the ones he doesn't like, is that he can only skip twice. So he has to talk about 3, but you can skip twice. So, you ready, Andy?
So many rules. Okay.
I know. Don't worry. I'll keep you on the level. Right. Okay. So this is completely random, everybody. And just to confirm, Andy, you do not know what these are in advance.
I have no idea whatsoever.
You don't even have no idea what's going on. So it's great.
No.
Right. So the first topic is typewriters. Is this something you want to riff about for 60 seconds or so, or do you want to take a hike?
My dad had a typewriter when we were growing up in his office, but it wasn't a mechanical. Well, it was a mechanical typewriter, but it had this ball in it, which, as you typed, it would rotate around to kind of imprint on the thing, which looked just like a Ferrero Rocher. So it had a little Ferrero Rocher on the thing, and as you typed, and it just kind of spun around. It used to fascinate me for hours watching it. Oh, and it had it was almost like a tape reel thing, and if you made a mistake, you could rewind it back. But it also meant that if you took the tape out afterwards, it was like reading through ticker tape things, sort of things.
Nice.
You could almost read the read the messages which had gone on there before. So there you go. There's some random stuff about typewriters.
I didn't even know that. I mean, I remember the one that had Tipex effectively in it. So, you press the backspace button and it would basically Tipex exactly try and print. But then everything would always go misaligned eventually, which means you just get this really ghostly looking. And then I used to do that as a kid on my old dad's typewriter. I used to type something and then Tipex it offset slightly, and it had this really cool font effect.
If you Google golf ball typewriters, you can find what I'm talking about.
Golf ball typewriters.
Yes.
Okay.
It's like a little Ferrero Rocher thing, though.
I can't think of anything but a Ferrero Rocher typewriter now. Yeah. Right. With a golden keypad and a keyboard and everything.
No, the keypad wasn't gold, but Ferrero Rocher was.
I was hoping to be full golden kit, but anyway. Okay. No. Right. Actually, now the second topic you might actually choose to go for, because I know what connection you're going to make, right?
Oh, okay.
But the topic, so you can skip it and say take high if you want, is botany.
Botany Bay.
I knew you would.
I won't do Botany Bay, but I won't do Botany Bay. I will instead plug one of my favourite books. Okay. That is The Martian by Andy Weir.
Right.
Which features a botanist who ends up being stranded on Mars and has to survive for a year. It was made into a very good film by Ridley Scott. I dare say Ridley Scott's last good film, starring Matt Damon. But The Martian, and a fantastic science fiction story about how important it is that you have a botanist if you're ever going to be stranded on Mars. Also, potatoes. Potatoes are important.
That's a really good link.
But also Botany Bay from Star Trek 2.
Yeah, exactly.
You task me. He tasks me, and I shall have him.
Oh my God, I'm going to have to watch that movie again. So we got 3 topics left. You can only choose one. But, oh, crikey, don't even start. So 3 topics left. You can only choose one of these now.
Okay.
So the next topic is Renaissance.
Renaissance. I'll take a hype. I'll tell you what, I'll take a hype, but I'll reserve the right to come back to one of these if
you can't do that. Cheating. Oh, all right. Okay. Now, actually, I think you might want to actually skip this one because I think actually we kind of covered this sort of when we talked about Sarek. And This is no word of a lie. This did come up randomly, and the 4th topic was dementia.
Okay.
Believe it or not.
I think I have covered it as much as I probably want to do.
Seriously, because that episode of Star Trek Next Generation, so that it was very allegory to dementia. And the 5th and final topic, which technically you do have to talk about, is masonry.
Masonry, eh? Masonry. I can talk a little bit about masonry, I suppose. I mean, one of the things I do, I enjoy photography. If anyone follows me on Instagram, which is at Andy P3E, I like to go and take pictures. One of the things I like to take pictures of is the buildings we have in London. We have some wonderful architecture throughout London, and if St Paul's Cathedral is a really impressive building and a structure, and if you go in there, it's not worth the money to go in. But I took the wife once, so we can go up there. But you get up there. I love being able to see the witness marks on the stone. It kind of connects you in a way to the builders who created this thing many hundreds of years ago. And there's graffiti in there, which is awesome. Builders put graffiti on the bricks when they were putting them in there. It's not quite, Fez was here 1722, but it's not far away from that.
Oh, sweet. That is actually really, really interesting because that fact now should get some of us to actually look at these old historical buildings just a little bit closer and think about what these strange scratch marks are in some of the brickwork, because they could be weathered away old graffiti signatures.
If you go to St Paul's and you walk up to the through the Whispering Gallery up to the very top, now they've changed it now, but it used to be that the stone steps had worn away so much that they were unsafe because people over the many centuries walking up there had just worn away the stone steps. And it's just really fascinating when you go and see these buildings. Not just to St Paul's. If you go to Cleopatra's Needle on the Thames, and let's not get into the whole touchy subject about why that's on the Thames and not in Egypt, but at the pedestal around the base of it are shrapnel damage from during the war, where a bomb exploded nearby and it put damage onto the wall, but they didn't repair it. But they put a plaque there saying, this was caused by a bomb explosion in 1940, whatever it was. And I think that's always fascinating when you see these places and you see the human connection to them. You see these little bits that speak to who built it, and who put it together. They had a King Tutankhamun exhibit in London last year. It was the last thing we did before it all went to hell. And you've got these objects, these items, which are 6,000 years old. They were 4,000 years old of the year dot. That's kind of how old they were. And you can see little witness marks on this stuff, little bits of gold. Wow. It's like someone carved that. Someone did all these things. And it just connects you in a way. Can I go off on a little side tangent very briefly?
Yeah, go on in.
You see? Your father wanted you to have this when you were older. You recognize this, yeah?
Oh, my son is a lightsaber.
This is a replica of Luke Skywalker and Anakin Skywalker's lightsabers from A New Hope. Because one of the things I like to do is I like to build replicas of props. What I love about when I make a prop is I try to make it as accurate as possible. Not because I'm trying to do any kind of clearance or anything like this, but I'm solving a lot of the same problems that the original prop makers would do, and it kind of connects me to the film and to the product, to the prop in a way that you wouldn't have otherwise. Because this was originally a camera flash, and when you get hold of it and you start exploring why did they choose to do this, this is great for an audio medium, so all you listening at home, I'm sorry, but you see, here's the grip, the switch.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
right. It's only this way on the A New Hope lightsaber, which makes sense. So when you hold it, you've got the activation stud where your thumb is. But after that, in all of the other films, it's on the other side. And we were like, well, why is it like that? And it's because after they finished filming it, they took some promo photos. And at some point, it was opened up to put batteries in it or something. And when they put it back together, they put it back the other way around. And it's just never been corrected. So it's always been on the wrong side. And I really like looking at it and understanding. It connects me to the film and to the movie making in a way. I've got a full-size proton pack, and it was really interesting when I'm doing that. Because one day I just woke up and I said, I'd like a proton pack. Oh, wait, I can have a proton pack. It's understanding some of the design issues and the things that connect me to it. And it was a really good way for me to kind of, to stim, to just kind of, zone out, to just get out of my own head for a little while and just build on something. And,
amazing.
It's much the same way with Masonry. There you go. You see, and thus we're back here.
Yes, I love it. And you're gonna have to put a picture on that on Twitter, and we can link to it when the episode goes out.
Yes. I will send you some pictures. I got some stuff on my Instagram that I can send to you.
Oh, well, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Andy. Right, one last thing to do then.
Okay.
That is to connect you to our previous guests, our first lot of guests from the first episode, season 2, because I actually had 2 people on, which was really, really lovely. I had Lauren Sinclair, who's a teacher in Portland, Oregon, middle school teacher. Middle school teacher, and one of her ex-middle school students, Surya, which was really lovely. It was a lovely discussion about maps and GIS and mapathons and just a bit of a laugh, really. But when I asked them to come up with a word for you to try and link to anything to do with geography, geographical processes, or anything you so wish, they had a bit of a challenge, shall we say, because they weren't quite sure what to come up with. So they picked the word drag.
Drag,
as in raw pools drag, that kind of drag, as in the creative medium, the creative art of drag. So because they really wanted to try and stump you, because Lauren is a long time listener. Hi, Lauren. So Lauren's listened to all of season 1, and she said, "Well, I want to see what the other person can come up with here, rather than just throw them something they're going to do a connection." So, and I was like, this will be an interesting one for you, Andy. Drag. Do you think you can have a go at it? So, of course, you've got to do it under time conditions.
We can have a go. I mean, say when.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll tell you what. We'll start the 30 seconds now. I got it.
Well, 30 seconds now. Well, I don't watch Drag Race whatsoever, but I am very familiar with the works of Eddie Izzard. And Eddie Izzard has done many, many, many fantastic sketches talking about drag and colonialism and geography and things like that. You'll need a flag, obviously. But going further back, as we tie it into history, I know that I don't know this for certain, but obviously there were periods when you couldn't be a actor if you were a woman. So many female roles in plays were performed by men wearing women's clothes, things like that.
Is it true?
I don't know if that was any good or anything. I don't know if I did it right or not.
Well, no, but that's fine. It's your take on the word and how it connects to other things. And yeah, so use Eddie Izzard, who's done a lot of documentaries as well, humanitarian kind of things.
You need a flag.
You need a flag, indeed.
You need a flag, yes.
So
Death Star Canteen, of course.
So that's definitely one link there, and of course it's a cultural thing. It's something which takes place in various communities, and drag is a very, very big part of from LGBT history. Like the Stonewall riots, because that wasn't just regards to with gay, lesbian and bisexual people. There were trans people involved, there were drag kings and drag queens involved, and of course that was a very, very big part of history in that part of the world. So there's lots of different ways that you could probably have connected that. But yeah, and then the clothing, of course, then you could have gone and then it's a whole global fashion industry. Drag is a bit of an industry, it's a global phenomenon and all that kind of. So I've
just recently been listening to Sandman, the audio dramas, which are fantastic, and people should absolutely be listening to those. But my mind went to A Midsummer's Night Dream the story by doing that. And in there, obviously, you have they put on A Midsummer's Night's Dream for the Fae there, and you have I think it's Shakespeare's son who's playing one of the roles of the princesses in there as well, and because there were no women in the company because only men could be actors at the time.
That's right.
Allegedly. Yep. The history we have says only men could be actors, and I'm sure that was the case. But
it's another fantastic link. Yep. So exploring, different geographical places through the arts, through acting, in Shakespeare's time, because it was all the men that dressed up as doing all the women's parts. So, yeah, another little link there. Nice one. Right then, Andy, your turn to turn the tables. Can you
yes.
words? Oh, my God. Well, that just sends shivers down my spine, that did. Right, what words do you want to give to our next guest to challenge to link to geography?
Well, the word I have chosen, and I will say this word now, and you can decide if this word is okay or if this is too unkind, because this is my favorite word in the English language because it is the longest non-technical word in the English language. Would you like to know what that word is?
Well, the long is, unless it's an urban myth that anti-disestablishmentarianism is the longest word in the English language.
That is the one.
That is the one.
Longest non-technical word. There's longer technical words and names and things, but the longest non-technical. And unless Stephen Fry has lied to me, and quite frankly, if Stephen Fry is wrong, I don't want to be right.
I'm less worried about giving that to my next guest than I am about trying to fit it into my bleeding word cloud. And
okay. So I have a backup word. Would you like to hear a backup word?
I'll make it work. And also, if I'm going to make a bleeding poem at the end of season 2, well, I'm going to get anti-disestablishmentarianism in there. I will. I'll
figure it out.
Right. Okay. No, I'm up for the challenge. And my next guest, they're going to...
Yeah. So to your next guest, I would just like to say, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
What first impression are you going to give? Right. Well, thank you so much for talking to me, Andy. For now, this is the 4th or 5th conversation we've had, and it's always loads and loads of fun.
It's always a pleasure to speak with you kids.
Yeah. So we always end up then with any shout outs and any promos you want to give, how we can find you on social media. So yeah, rung them off here. Who would like to say hi to, and what would you like to tell us a little bit about?
Well, I tell you what I will want to say, because I have been podcasting for quite a while now. A little bit. I want to give a little tip of a hat and a shout out to you, Kit, because the document you sent me in preparation for this literally blew my socks off. I have never received such a lovely introduction document helping someone to connect. I've got to say, I felt a little bit called out, a little bit put down by it, but it's amazing.
It's my OCD, really,
but it is fantastic. Anyone who podcasts, you should absolutely aim to provide something like that, especially if you have guests on who are not podcasters, because I imagine it goes a long way to making it go a lot smoother. So my first shout out and tip of the hat is to your good self, and I really appreciated that. In terms of the stuff I do, all of my podcasts can be found at rogue2media.com. I do the Great Derelict podcast, which is about everything and anything to do with science fiction. I do the Into the Expanse podcast, which is a companion podcast for The Expanse, which very sadly is about to end. Now, by the time this comes out, I suspect it will have ended quite a while ago. But if you haven't listened or watched it, you should go and watch The Expanse and then listen to the podcast afterwards. Because we explain things for people and help connect dots. And I also do the Grand Prix podcast because for my sins, I enjoy watching Formula One. Well, I did enjoy watching Formula One. It's to be decided if I'm still going to enjoy watching Formula One next season. We'll see.
We could spend a whole 50 minutes talking about the end of the season, I think.
Yeah, I've got enough of that on the fucking podcast. Anyway, yes, they're all there. You can find me on Twitter at Andy3E. The Great Derelict has a Facebook group, which is The Great Derelict.
Yep, both are fun.
I mentioned the Twitter things. I met Instagram. That was Andy P3E. I've got a cosplay one as well, but they're all linked on there. So, do go and check all those wonderful things out.
Yeah,
in terms of shout outs, there's many, many wonderful people out there on the Trek community that both myself and Kit are connected to. Follow them. Be cool. Don't be a dick, basically.
Absolutely, 100%. Well, Andy, always a pleasure. And I have to say, before we part ways, is that it's been absolutely well, it's serendipitous that we managed to connect and everything like that. But you've quick become not just an acquaintance with me, but I think a good friend as well. Someone who I can geek off and bounce off, and it's just lovely. And it's just it's very, very enriching and wonderful to know that you're around and doing your thing and entertaining us. And yeah, so thank you very, very much. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you had fun. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe so more stories and experiences can drop into your favourite podcast app. If you fancy being a guest or have any feedback, follow us on Twitter at coffeegeogpod and send us a DM. Or you could email coffeeandgeog@geogramblings.com. Until next time, keep geogging.